Hi, Dave Markham here for the Brockport Radio. I have with me this morning Pam Ketchum. Pam and I and Michelle Reed did a workshop over at RIT for PERI, that's Partners in Restorative Initiative, back on April 9th. And Michelle Reed talked a bit about the restorative practices they're using at the college. And I talked a bit about the psychosocial impact it's had on my family and the difference between adversarial justice, which we have in our regular criminal justice system, and restorative justice. And Pam Ketchum did a wonderful presentation on community service and the thing that she's doing in Brockport to help people repair some of the harm that might have been done as part of their offending. And I have Pam with me on the phone. And Pam, tell us a bit about your community service and how you got it started.
Well, I submitted a PowerPoint that you have, and it indicates that there were basically 3 events that occurred that kind of got me hooked into working with people who are required to do court-assigned community service. Back in July of 2011, I was one of a group of people that volunteered to clean up the various parks in the village, and I worked with a 20-year-old who had to complete 8 hours of community service. And so we worked on the garden over at Remembrance Park, and we also worked in the garden over by the village hall. And so that kind of started it off, and then there have been some other situations that let the police department know that I was concerned about our community. So I was called, probably in March of 2012, to participate in a restorative justice situation that involved 2 college students. And that's what really got it going. And I agreed to work with them and completed 32 hours of service in Sagala Park and on Main Street in those little gardens around the trees. So
it's really contributed a lot to the quality of life in our community. Allows people who maybe have offended to contribute something back to the community. Do you have, you mentioned a little bit the work you did with the 2 college students. Can you say a little more about that? I think one of the Brockport police officers got involved with you with that, didn't he?
Well, the police officer there had been an incident, and these 2 people needed to do community service. We did go to PERI in Rochester, Partners in, I've forgotten the name.
Restorative Initiatives.
Yeah, and they were the counseling session, so to speak, of talking about the harm that occurred, and I played the role of the community person who, in a sense, was harmed, and we came up with a response of what those 2 people could do to make things better in the village of Brockport. And one of the things that I like to do is, I like to garden. I consider gardens, public gardens, almost like public art or sculpture. And I think when people walk around the village and they see gardens that are in nice condition and nice shape, it's inspiring, and it gives a sense of well-being. And so in working with people to maintain and restore our village gardens, it's a chance for people to learn about gardening. I'm always trying to learn from the people that I work with as well. And in the past, I've worked with one person in particular who taught me the fine art of shoveling wood chips, and it truly is a fine art. And it's something that I continue to practice and continue to explain to other people that I work with. And sometimes people already know that technique, and other times it's a new idea. But I really like to, we're partners, we're a team when we tackle these projects in the gardens. And, I'm not necessarily the leader, the one that's going to I'm not reprimanding in any way. I'm really enlisting people's help and their ideas, and how can we work together to really have a nice time. So
that's beautiful, Pam. I think that's one of the benefits of restorative justice, is it restores the offender to right relationship with other people in the community rather than stigmatizing them further. And because of that restoration of right relationship, it's much less likely that they will recidivate or continue with their offensive behavior. So they're having that experience with you where they're able to contribute and you respect that, and they feel somewhat appreciated and they're able to give back to the community. I think goes a long way in facilitating the development of that mutual relationship, which is restorative. Can you talk for a minute about the other benefits of community service and restorative justice?
Yeah.
I know you've got a couple of slides here where you kind of tick them off. What would you say the benefits are?
Well, one of the things, as I had said, we're doing beautification. It's almost like economic development, with especially the parks that are, Sagawa Park and Harvester Park, where there's so many people that come by those parks. They visit the parks. That they're welcoming to not only residents but visitors, and so the patchwork gardens that we've created with the fencing around the 26 trees on Main and Market Street. The community service people have helped with that, and I really consider that to make our downtown area more inviting. More people want to come down and shop, and it's part of economic development. Also, there's community pride, and I encourage people who help me to come back, in the months and the years to come, and see as these gardens develop and grow and mature, and to know that they had a hand in making this. Right. It's an expression of creativity, as I said. Gardens are public art, it helps people realize that what we are doing makes a difference. It improves life in the village, and also another benefit is that as far as job training, employment opportunities, I'm typically very glad to write letters of recommendation, whether somebody's applying for a job doing gardening sorts of things, or if they're just looking for a character reference. And I have been called, by the people I worked with and asked, can I use you as a reference? And I always said yes. And I frequently will get a call from somebody who's applied to work at Tim Hortons or, one of the pizza places, or, just a variety of places. So I'm glad to do that kind of recommendation. And then there's also just recently brainstorming on problems that are happening in the village. I was talking about the Low Bridge High Water Canal Opening Festival celebration that's coming up, and there were a couple people that are over at the college that I'm working with, and they said, wow, that sounds really neat. We want to participate. We'd love to, buy a ticket for the Taste of Brockport. How do we find out about it? And so then it gave me the idea, gee, we really should be advertising in the Stylist, because there's this great population that would really like to participate and benefit from, knowing about the history of the canal and the history of Brockport. So, it works. It goes in both directions. I think it's all very beneficial.
That's great. Now, you and I have talked about this, and we've kind of joked about it that, this isn't just fuzzy, warm, social worky kind of stuff. You actually take it very serious, and you have a slide here that says requirements for success. So this isn't just fun and games. I mean, obviously you enjoy it, and it sounds like the people that get involved with you also get a great deal out of it in terms of satisfaction and fulfillment. On the other hand, you do have this fairly structured. I wondered if you could describe that a little bit, where you talk about what needs to happen in order for this to be actually a credible, serious part of the community criminal justice system.
Sure. Well, I have to give a lot of credit to Bob Connors. He is the judge in the town of Sweden, and he is really the first person who has, and when interacting with people who are, having to come before the court, he is the one who has assigned community service. And anyway, the judge is serious about community service. This is something that has to be done, absolutely has to be done. And when I get a call from the person who needs to do the community service, we exchange our contact information. And, it's a lot about good record keeping. I keep track of who I'm going to be working with, their name, number of hours they have to do. We set up a schedule that's flexible for their work and school requirements. I've worked with a whole variety of people. I think maybe the youngest was maybe 15 or 16, and I've worked with people that were in their 40s. So it's a broad range, and not only the town of Sweden court, but also other courts in, I'd say mostly upstate New York, that people have done something, they've been required to do community service, and then they come to me looking for that opportunity. As I said, I'm friendly, and one thing that I say to people on a pretty regular basis is that I'm not going to ask them to do anything that I can't do. Mm-hmm. So, and that we're going to have fun doing this, and working together, and that I'm respectful and appreciative of their efforts and their attitudes. And when we finish up, we typically come back to my house. I always give them my address, and so we meet here because that's where all the gardening equipment is, and I'm kind of centrally located on Park Avenue. And so when we're all done, we come back, and I write up a statement and email it to the court and also to the person I just worked with, and I also give them a paper copy. And then I call and check in with the court from time to time just to review who I've worked with, who's followed through, who hasn't, so that they are up to date. Mm-hmm. And so there's really checks and balances, and it is an important thing that it does get done. So.
Now, in your presentation, you have a slide that documents the hours that were actually contributed in 2012. And I would bet that if we had a slide for 2013, it would be even more probably than what was done in 2012, because you didn't start documenting those hours in 2012 until April. So, but at any rate, can you just talk a little bit about the monetary value and the number of hours of community service labor that's gone into these gardens in the village of Brockport?
Well, one just clarification is that I am somewhat limited by the gardening season.
Sure,
so,
that's right.
Sometimes we will get started in March if it's a warm spring, but primarily, and the latest that I've been working with people, last November we were working as the snow was coming down. I jokingly said we're going to have to get out our hair dryers and to melt the snow because we wanted to get to the gardens. But
you're one of the people I learned the term winter gardening from, because I know sometimes you're out there in the winter. I'm not sure what you do out there, but I know you're out there working.
Yeah. Well, we get a lot of things done. One of the things that we did over in Sagawa Park in late fall is, digging up areas that had really become just too overrun with weeds. It was just too difficult to try to weed with any success and restore what was there. So we had to basically take everything out, or the majority of things. And so I had a group from Brockport Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, I think is the name. And they were very energetic and helped. And then their community service people, go over to the bookstore, Lift Bridge bookstore, and get their cardboard boxes that were knocked down and put those over the surface of the garden, and then DPW brings over wood chips, and we put those on top, a nice thick layer that's 4 to 6 inches thick, and then it all is very ecologically sound, and that's a good way of getting rid of the weeds and kind of stabilizing the area before we start planting again. But there's a lot of hours. I have worked as a gardener for various people and then paid $25 an hour, so that's what I consider my going rate, and I think that the state has a going rate of $8 an hour that they consider for volunteer standards. And so we did total up about, I've got here 291 hours roughly, and when you do the math, it comes to just under $10,000 for that.
That's pretty incredible.
Year, yeah. So,
and if you considered 40 hours in a work week, that actually would be 8 weeks, 2 months of free labor from the community service workers and from you. That's pretty incredible.
Right. So we're, I kind of feel like we're making Brockport a nicer place to live. We're, instilling a lot of pride in our village, and we're saving money for the village taxpayers, and I'm always looking for donations of money that I can use to purchase some plants. I've gotten a lot of donations of plants as well. Huda and Ray Duncan, I think, are probably the top donors as far as giving me plants that I've been able to use. And so we get a lot of plants from Sarah's Garden Center. They give a discount or give us a reasonable price for the plants. And then I've used a lot of my own plants and provided them. So, we're always trying to be creative on the design of the gardens and getting the plant material. 500 daffodil bulbs were planted over at Harvester Park 2 years ago, and I check on them almost every day. They're coming up. They've multiplied. They're looking quite good now. We've gotten that garden cleaned up just in the last couple weeks, and 1,000 daffodil bulbs were planted on Main and Market Street last year in the garden squares. I'm not sure if the quality of those bulbs were as good as the previous ones, so we'll have to see how well they come up. But it's been a very positive experience.
Now, how much do you get paid, Pam?
For working in the garden?
Yeah, for running this community service program.
Oh, well, I get paid very well in terms of a good feeling, and it contributes to my phrase that I like to say, that I'm high on life.
You do this for nothing, Pam? Is that what you're saying? You don't get paid a dime? This is all volunteer on your part?
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Wow, you're wonderful. What a commitment to the community. I was putting you on the spot there, and I know that. I know you do this on a volunteer basis, but I just wanted to emphasize that for our listening audience, that a lot of people committed to restorative justice practices do it because they have a passion for it. Their heart's in it, and you're a great example of that, of the wonderful work now that you've done in our community for 3 years or so, working with these folks and helping create a higher quality of life in Brockport for everybody, for the offender, for victims who feel that somehow the harm's been repaired, and for our community. So I really appreciate your taking the time this morning to share all this with us, and for the wonderful presentation you did at RIT at the Peary Conference on April 9th. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we finish?
No, I think it's important for me to emphasize that I do this primarily for myself. There's things that radiate out from that, but I think when you get involved in something like this, you need to do it because you really want to do it. It's not that I'm expecting anything in return necessarily.
Right.
If I can bring some happiness and some enjoyment to others, then that's great. But I bring an awful lot of happiness and enjoyment to myself. And there's nothing like working over in Tagawa Park and looking around at all the taller buildings and being able to enjoy the architecture and visiting with the people when they come back and forth through the park. And it's very enjoyable. It's very nice participating in a community like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks so much for the interview.
Yeah, thank you, David.
All
I
right.
appreciate all the good work that you do as well.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, Pam.
Bye-bye.